I'm Dr. Sri Banerjee, core faculty for the College of Health Sciences and Public Policy at Walden University. And in this video, I'm going to be going over talking about some basic types of principles when first thinking about geospatial research. A lot of students, when they make the transition from trying to think in terms of the classroom and the structure of what is there, it's difficult to make the leap from there to understanding data in terms of visuals, and so I'm not just talking about visuals in terms of histograms and bar charts, circle graphs. These are challenging to try to think of on their own, but I'm specifically talking in terms of maps. And specifically talking about how you can display data robustly within maps. And there's a lot of I would say there's a lot of myths, a lot of misconceptions out there. And this particular lecture is designed to kind of dispel some of those myths and misconceptions, so that we can better approach geospatial research with a more informed manner. And I'm going to do this in a very brief, concise way. And so by the end, you should be able to know what are some things you need to do to get started today. So let's get started. So geospatial studies, the way I wanted to start explaining this to you is just simple. Look for ways that you can understand your topic in a geospatial perspective. So you have to kind of understand what geospatial means. You have to understand what it is and what it's not. So we're surrounded by geospatial information, right? You go into the car, you might use a GPS, there's addresses, there's coordinates, there's all of this information. So when people are thinking about geospatial research, they oftentimes just think, okay, do I have addresses? Do I have GPS coordinates? If the answer is no, then they just don't even explore that option anymore. Or then there's another group of students that's already applying geospatial principles but don't even know that they are. So that the example of this is that some students will say, what's the comparison in urban versus rural societies in say colon cancer screening. So in that situation, you're using geospatial questions, but then you don't necessarily know that that's what is being applied there. So it's important to know that it's not just about geospatial coordinates, latitude, longitude. It's great if you have that information, but a lot of my geospatial studies that I've recently conducted don't have any coordinates. I'm going by simply zip code information, or many times maybe county level information. It doesn't even have to be county. So it all depends on the granularity that you want to be working with. So that's what the next bullet point is going into. And then looking at not all geospatial studies have maps, and I talked about that already. Talking about urban versus rural, this information is contained within certain data sets, but not anything more granular than that. So what are ways to understand? So this is the second big kind of component to all of this when you're thinking about geospatial studies, is that are you looking at one map And if so, then what characteristic are you looking at within that one map? Are you, for instance, one a data set, and this is one I want you to look into, is county health rankings. This is an excellent resource where you can go in and access very important indicators. So back to talking about one map. So within that one map, are you going to look into life expectancy, which is an indicator that you can retrieve from county health rankings? Are you going to look at percent poverty level? Are you going to look at another more complex measure like income inequity ratio of percent 80th percentile to 20th percentile, people among the richest and the poorest, and the disparities among that? Are you going to look at that? So these are all kind of one map features that you can look at. So the idea is that you can take a look at the spatial distribution of this, and depending on the condition that you're thinking about, maybe draw some conclusions as to where you think the disease might be worse, depending on the indicator. Now, that's one approach. You can take a relational map approach where you draw two maps and see where potentially income varies, and then maybe like broadband access. That's a social determinant research question that you can be thinking about, and then relating it back to some chronic disease indicator, or education level attainment. So relational maps are very important as well. And then the third type of important map is where you're conducting regression analyses. So now, not only are you asking the question, do you see kind of patterns, mapping patterns, but these kind of qualitative findings that you're observing, are they in fact statistically significant? What oftentimes happens, and this is something that I've talked about in geographically weighted regression, is that these relations vary by space, and so depending on the frequency of the occurrences, you have to vary how you study this by space. So this is a little bit more complicated beyond the scope of this talk, but just know this, that geographically weighted regression mapping is another way to show relationships. So the next thing you want to do is look for geospatial examples. So look for specific geospatial studies that have been conducted. So one type is interpolation, which is in the realm of inferential sort of geospatial analyses. And then others are looking into more this weighted regression. And so the geographically, one that I particularly talk about is multi-scale geographically weighted regression, but there are multiple types. And so you can kind of go into one of these studies. I encourage you to start from basic kind of studies that don't go into weighted regression, because that's a little bit more complex. And then try to make sense of all of this. So in the next segment, I go over how to open up an ArcGIS account to try to start making maps, and then build on that to create actual maps, colorful maps. Thank you for listening. I'm Dr. Sri Banerjee, core faculty for the College of Health Sciences and Public Policy at Walden University. And in this lecture, I'm going to be going over how to apply geospatial mapping skills in terms of basic research. If you're looking to try to take some of your findings and then present it in a way that it makes sense, then this is a good place to start. So I oftentimes forget that this is the one of the most basic steps that you have to take to try to create a map. So you just go in here, ArcGIS, a wonderful mapping software and tool which allows you to not only show wonderful maps with vibrant colors, but also provides you with understanding spatial relationships and be able to share between each other to better understand relationships. So here's the here's where you would click on map, but here's where you would make your own account, and since you don't necessarily have one, you go ahead and create an ArcGIS account, and you get a nice 21-day trial. So go ahead and click on this, create a trial account, 21-day trial. And then afterwards, you do lose the ability to analyze your findings, but then you can go ahead, once you're done with that, you can still create maps with the free cloud-based tool. So I encourage you to create this account. It's only $100 if you're a student for the annual subscription, and you get access to a lot of features. So that's all the different things that you can do with this. Go ahead and start your account today. Thank you for listening.